The waiting room was almost empty that Tuesday afternoon. Just an elderly woman flipping through a magazine and a young mother, trying to keep her toddler entertained with a picture book. The receptionist barely looked up when the glass door opened and a man in a navy blue suit walked in. "I have a 3 o'clock appointment," he said, approaching the desk with his insurance card already in hand. The receptionist glanced at her computer screen, then at him, then back at the screen. "Take a seat. Fill out these forms." He wanted to mention that he'd already filled out everything online when he booked the appointment, but he'd learned long ago to pick his battles. So he took the clipboard, found a seat near the window, and started filling out the same information he'd entered just 3 days earlier. 20 minutes passed, then 30. The elderly woman had been called in. The young mother and her toddler, too. Now he sat alone in the waiting room, watching the clock on the wall tick past 3:30. He approached the desk again. "Excuse me, I was supposed to be seen at 3. Is everything okay?" "The doctor's running behind," the receptionist said without looking up from her computer. "Please have a seat." Another 15 minutes crawled by before a nurse finally called his name. She led him down a hallway lined with framed certificates and medical diagrams, into a small examination room that smelled of antiseptic and lavender air freshener. "The doctor will be with you shortly," she said, closing the door behind her. He sat on the crinkly paper covering the examination table, his dress shoes dangling a few inches off the floor. His company required annual checkups for all employees, and he'd been putting this off for months. There'd been some chest pains recently. Nothing dramatic, just an occasional tightness that made him pause. Probably stress from the new project at work. Still, at 43, he figured it was worth getting checked out. The door opened and Dr. Cromwell walked in, reading something on his tablet. He was a tall man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses, wearing a white coat over an expensive-looking shirt and tie. "So what brings you in today?" the doctor asked, still not making eye contact. "Just a routine checkup. My company requires them annually, but I also wanted to mention that I've been having some chest pains occasionally." Now the doctor looked up, his eyes scanning him from head to toe in a way that made him feel like he was being appraised rather than examined. "Chest pains," Dr. Cromwell repeated slowly, as if speaking to someone who might not understand. "What kind of chest pains?" "Just a tightness sometimes. Usually when I'm stressed or—" "When you're stressed," the doctor interrupted. "And what is it you do for work?" "I'm a senior systems architect at Tech Vision Solutions. We're developing—" "Systems architect." The doctor's tone carried something that wasn't quite a question, but wasn't quite a statement either. Something that landed somewhere between doubt and dismissal. "That must be quite demanding." "It can be, yes. That's why I thought the chest pains might be stress-related, but I wanted to make sure there's nothing else going on." Dr. Cromwell set down his tablet and pulled out his stethoscope. "Let's take a look then. Unbutton your shirt." The examination that followed felt perfunctory at best. The doctor pressed the stethoscope against his chest for barely 3 seconds in each position. No questions about his medical history, beyond what was on the form. No real conversation about his symptoms. Breathe in, breathe out. Again. When the doctor checked his blood pressure, he pumped the cuff up quickly and released it just as fast, reading the numbers with a slight shake of his head. "Your blood pressure's a bit elevated," Dr. Cromwell said, making a note on his tablet. "Is it something I should be concerned about?" "Well, hypertension is quite common in—" The doctor paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "In many populations. Diet and lifestyle factors play a significant role. I eat pretty healthy, actually. I run 4 times a week." The doctor didn't look up from his tablet. "And these chest pains you mentioned, how often would you say they occur?" "Maybe once or twice a week. Sometimes more if work is particularly busy." "And you work in computers, you said?" "Yes, I'm a systems architect. I design and oversee the infrastructure for—" Right. Dr. Cromwell waved his hand dismissively. "That must be quite a change of pace from what you're probably used to. The tech industry can be very demanding. Lots of pressure to perform, keep up with everyone else." There it was again, that tone, that implication hanging in the air like smoke. "I've been in the industry for 20 years, he said evenly. "I actually helped develop some of the security protocols that—" 20 years, the doctor repeated, but his expression suggested he didn't quite believe it. "Well, good for you. Diversity initiatives have really opened up opportunities, haven't they?" The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer. He could feel his jaw tightening. About the chest pains. He tried again, keeping his voice level. Should I be doing any follow-up tests? An EKG or... I think what you're experiencing is anxiety, Dr. Cromwell said, cutting him off. Very common with high-stress jobs, especially when you're trying to prove yourself. I'm going to recommend you try some breathing exercises. Maybe meditation? There are apps for that now. But shouldn't we rule out any cardiac issues first? My father had heart disease and... Look, the doctor said, his patience clearly wearing thin. I've been practicing medicine for over 20 years. I know anxiety when I see it. You're a young man working in a high-pressure environment. Your symptoms are classic anxiety. Trust me. The dismissiveness in those last two words stung more than anything else, trust me, as if he was a child who needed reassurance, not a grown man with legitimate health concerns. I'd still like to get some tests done. If you're not comfortable ordering them, I can find another doctor who... That's your choice, of course, Dr. Cromwell said, standing up and moving toward the door. But you'll just be wasting time and money. These tests aren't cheap, you know. Even with insurance, the implication was clear. He couldn't possibly afford proper health care. Never mind that he was sitting there in a tailored suit, with excellent insurance from his Fortune 500 employer. I'd like my medical records transferred to another physician, he said quietly. Can you have your office handle that? Certainly. Dr. Cromwell opened the door. The receptionist can help you with that. And I'd really suggest trying those breathing exercises. Maybe cut back on caffeine. Get more sleep. You'll be fine. And just like that, the appointment was over. 10 minutes of actual examination time after waiting nearly an hour. 10 minutes in which his concerns were dismissed, his intelligence questioned, his competence doubted. He walked out of that office with his jaw clenched and his hands balled into fists in his pockets. 20 years of education, 20 years of building a career, 20 years of proving himself over and over again. And still in that examination room, none of it had mattered. What Dr. Cromwell didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have known as he watched his patient walk out the door, was that dismissing those chest pains so carelessly wasn't just bad medicine. It was a decision that would come back to haunt him in less than 24 hours. But that night, driving home in the fading sunlight, all he could think about was how even in a doctor's office, where everyone was supposed to be treated equally, where medical needs were supposed to come before everything else, he still wasn't seen as fully human. He still wasn't enough. Dr. Cromwell arrived home that evening to the smell of his wife's homemade lasagna. His daughter was upstairs finishing homework before soccer practice. Everything was normal, routine, exactly as it should be. How was your day? His wife asked, setting the table. Fine. Busy. He loosened his tie and poured himself a glass of water. The usual parade of people convinced they're dying when they just need to lose 20 pounds and stop eating fast food. His wife laughed. She was used to his complaints about patients who self-diagnosed on the internet or demanded unnecessary tests. Katie has practice until 8, she reminded him. Can you pick her up? I have book club tonight. He nodded, already thinking about the journal article he wanted to read after dinner. Something about new cardiac protocols that he should probably familiarize himself with. Though in his mind, the old ways worked just fine. Dinner passed quickly. His daughter inhaled her food, grabbed her soccer bag, and kissed him on the cheek before rushing out the door with her mother. At 16, Katie was all energy and motion, rarely still for more than a minute. She was a midfielder on her high school varsity team, fast and competitive, with college scouts already watching her play. Dr. Cromwell settled into his leather recliner with his journal, losing himself in medical terminology and treatment protocols. The house was quiet, peaceful. His phone rang at 7:45. Mr. Cromwell? The voice was strained, unfamiliar. This is Coach Henderson. There's been an incident at practice. Katie collapsed. We've called an ambulance. The journal fell from his hands. What do you mean collapsed? What happened? I don't know. 1 minute she was running drills, the next she just went down. She's conscious, but she's having trouble breathing. The paramedics are here now. They're taking her to St. Augustine Hospital. He was in his car before the coach finished talking, his hands shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. He called his wife 3 times before she answered, her book club laughter dying instantly when she heard his voice. Meet me at St. Augustine, it's Katie. She collapsed. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every other car on the road seemed to be deliberately blocking his path. He parked illegally in front of the emergency entrance and ran inside. My daughter, Katie Cromwell. She was just brought in by ambulance. The ER receptionist's calm professionalism only made his panic worse. She's being evaluated now. If you'll just take a seat, I'm a doctor. I need to see her now. I understand, sir, but the medical team is with her. Someone will update you as soon as possible. He wanted to shout, to demand, to use every bit of authority he'd built up over 20 years in medicine. But he wasn't a doctor here. He was just a father. A terrified father who couldn't do anything but wait. His wife arrived 10 minutes later, her face pale, still wearing her book club outfit. They held hands in the waiting room, not speaking, both imagining the worst. A doctor finally emerged, young, maybe 30, with tired eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Cromwell, I'm Dr. Patterson. Your daughter is stable for now, but her condition is concerning. What's wrong with her? Dr. Cromwell demanded. What happened? She's having severe respiratory distress. Her oxygen levels dropped dramatically, and we're seeing some cardiac irregularities as well. We're running tests now, but it appears to be some kind of severe allergic reaction that triggered a cascade effect. A reaction? To what? We're not sure yet, but her body is responding aggressively. Her airways are inflamed, and the stress on her system is affecting her heart. We've got her on oxygen and monitoring, but I'll be honest with you, this is complicated. The combination of pulmonary and cardiac involvement is unusual. Dr. Cromwell's medical training kicked in through his fear. What are her vitals? What medications have you given her? Have you consulted cardiology? Dr. Patterson recited numbers that made Dr. Cromwell's stomach turn. Blood pressure too low, heart rate erratic, oxygen saturation hovering at dangerous levels despite intervention. Our lead cardiologist is at a conference in Chicago, Dr. Patterson continued. We have a good team here, but your daughter needs a specialist who can handle both the pulmonary complications and the cardiac issues simultaneously. This kind of case requires someone with very specific expertise. Then find someone, his wife cried out. Find whoever you need. We're trying. I've been making calls. The challenge is finding someone available on such short notice who has experience with this exact combination of symptoms. They moved Katie to the ICU an hour later. Dr. Cromwell watched through the glass as nurses worked around his daughter's bed, monitoring screens that beeped and flashed with information he understood all too well. Each number told him his daughter was in serious trouble. He'd seen patients die. He'd delivered bad news to countless families. But standing on this side of the glass, watching his own child struggle to breathe was different. All his knowledge, all his experience meant nothing. He couldn't fix this. He couldn't even help. His wife sat in a chair, crying quietly. Other families came and went from the ICU waiting area. Night deepened outside the windows. Dr. Patterson kept them updated every 30 minutes, but the news never improved. Katie's condition wasn't stabilizing. The medications weren't working as well as they'd hoped. Her heart was showing increasing signs of stress. We need that specialist, Dr. Patterson said during his 11 o'clock update. His young face looked haggard now. I've called everyone I can think of. Most are unavailable or too far away. There's one more person I'm trying to reach. He's supposed to be one of the best for this kind of case. Who? Dr. Cromwell asked. A cardiothoracic surgeon named Dr. Williams. He works at Memorial Hospital across town. He's handled several cases like this successfully. The problem is getting him here. He was in surgery all day, and I'm not sure if he's still at the hospital or if he's gone home. Dr. Cromwell felt a strange sensation in his chest. Williams. The name felt familiar somehow, though he couldn't place it through his exhaustion and fear. Just find him, his wife pleaded. Please, whatever it takes. Dr. Patterson nodded and disappeared down the hallway, his phone already pressed to his ear. Time became strange. Minutes felt like hours. Dr. Cromwell found himself praying, something he hadn't done since medical school, when he still believed there were forces in the universe beyond what he could see under a microscope. Let her live. Please let her live. I'll do anything. Just let my daughter live. Through the glass, he watched Katie's chest rise and fall with mechanical assistance. 16 years old. She was supposed to be worrying about SATs and prom dates and which college to attend. She was supposed to have her whole life ahead of her. At 11:45, Dr. Patterson came back, and for the first time that night, he looked relieved. I got him. Dr. Williams is coming. He's about 20 minutes away." "Thank God," his wife whispered. Dr. Cromwell nodded, feeling a weight lift slightly from his chest. Help was coming. Someone who knew what to do. Someone who could save Katie. He had no idea that when Dr. Williams walked through those ICU doors, his relief would turn into something else entirely. He had no idea that the specialist coming to save his daughter's life was someone he'd met before. He had no idea that in less than 20 minutes, he would come face to face with the man he'd dismissed and humiliated just that afternoon. The man whose chest pains he'd ignored. The man whose medical concerns he'd brushed off as anxiety. The man he'd treated as less than human. That man was now the only person who could save his daughter's life. And Dr. Cromwell had absolutely no idea what was about to walk through that door. The ICU doors swung open at exactly midnight. Dr. Cromwell looked up from where he sat, his wife's hand clutched in his. A man in surgical scrubs walked through, moving with the kind of purposeful stride that came from years of walking hospital corridors. He had a tablet under one arm and was listening intently to Dr. Patterson, who was briefing him as they walked. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Dr. Patterson was saying. "The parents are right over here." The specialist looked up. His eyes met Dr. Cromwell's, and the world seemed to stop. It was him. The man from this afternoon. The patient he'd rushed through, dismissed and sent away with nothing but advice about breathing exercises. The man whose chest pains he'd attributed to anxiety without running a single test. The man he'd assumed was out of his depth in the tech industry. The man he'd treated with barely concealed contempt. Dr. Cromwell felt his face go cold. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The specialist's expression didn't change. If he was surprised, he didn't show it. He simply turned his attention back to Dr. Patterson and continued walking toward the ICU. "Wait," Dr. Cromwell finally managed to say, standing up. "You're the specialist?" His wife looked at him, confused by the strange tone in his voice. "Richard, what's wrong?" The specialist stopped and turned to face them both. When he spoke, his voice was calm and professional. "I'm Dr. Williams. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon specializing in complex emergency cases. Dr. Patterson called me about your daughter's condition. I'm going to do everything I can to help her." "You're a surgeon?" Dr. Cromwell heard himself say the words and immediately wished he could take them back. The assumption, the disbelief, it was all there in his tone. Dr. Williams held his gaze for a moment. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, yes, but also something harder. Then he turned away. "I need to examine the patient and review her charts," he said to Dr. Patterson. "Let's not waste any more time." They disappeared into Katie's room, leaving Dr. Cromwell standing there, his wife pulling at his sleeve. "Richard, what is going on? Do you know him?" He couldn't finish the sentence. How could he explain? How could he tell his wife that the man who held their daughter's life in his hands was someone he'd humiliated just hours ago? That he'd dismissed this man's medical concerns, questioned his intelligence, and treated him like he didn't belong? Through the glass, he watched Dr. Williams examine Katie with focused attention. He moved with confidence, checking monitors, reviewing charts, asking questions of the nurses. This wasn't the uncertain patient from this afternoon. This was someone completely in command, someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Dr. Patterson came out after 15 minutes. "Dr. Williams is reviewing everything now. He's one of the best in the region for cases like this. Your daughter is in excellent hands." "How do you know him?" Dr. Cromwell asked. "He did a consultation here about 6 months ago. Saved a patient everyone else had given up on. When I saw your daughter's symptoms tonight, he was the first person I thought of." Dr. Cromwell sank back into his chair. The irony was so sharp it hurt. The man he judged unworthy of proper medical care was now the only one who could provide it for his own child. An hour passed. Then another. Dr. Williams remained in Katie's room, occasionally stepping out to consult with other staff, order new tests, make phone calls. Each time he passed the waiting area, Dr. Cromwell tried to catch his eye, but the surgeon's focus was entirely on his patient. At 2 a.m, Dr. Williams finally came out to talk to them. "Your daughter's condition is critical but stabilizing. The allergic reaction triggered an inflammatory cascade that's affecting both her respiratory and cardiac systems. It's rare, but I've seen it before. Can you fix it?" his wife asked, her voice breaking. "I'm going to perform a procedure to relieve the pressure on her heart and improve blood flow. It's delicate, but I believe it's her best chance. I need your consent to proceed. Yes, his wife said immediately. Yes, do whatever you need to do, Mr. Cromwell. Dr. Williams looked at him directly for the first time since arriving. I need both parents to consent. Do it, Dr. Cromwell whispered. Please, save my daughter. Dr. Williams nodded and turned to go, but Dr. Cromwell stood up, reaching out. Wait, please, I need to say something. Mr. Cromwell, your daughter needs surgery now. Whatever you need to say can wait. I know you. From this afternoon. You were my patient, his wife gasped. What? Dr. Williams stood very still. Yes, I was. And right now that doesn't matter. What matters is the 16-year-old girl in that room who needs emergency surgery. Can we please focus on that? I'm sorry, Dr. Cromwell said, the words tumbling out. I'm so sorry. The way I treated you. The things I said. The way I dismissed your symptoms. I was wrong. I was completely wrong, Mr. Cromwell. Dr. Williams's voice was firm but not unkind. I appreciate that. But your daughter is dying. I don't have time for this conversation right now. We can talk about this afternoon later if you want. Right now I need to go save your child's life. Can you let me do that? Dr. Cromwell nodded, feeling tears sting his eyes. Dr. Williams started to walk away, then paused. Without turning around, he said, For what it's worth, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for her. She's 16 years old. She deserves a chance at life. That's all that matters to me. Then he was gone, back through those ICU doors. His wife grabbed his arm. Richard, what happened this afternoon? What did you do? He couldn't look at her. He came in for a checkup. He told me he was having chest pains. And I didn't listen. I thought, you thought what? I didn't think he was who he said he was. I didn't believe he could be a surgeon. I treated him like, God, Janet, I treated him terribly. And now he's the only one who can save Katie. His wife stared at him, and in her eyes he saw disappointment that cut deeper than any anger could have. Tell me you didn't, she whispered. Tell me you didn't dismiss a patient because of... She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. They both knew what she meant. I'm not that person, he said weakly. I'm not a racist. I made assumptions. I was rushed. I didn't take the time to really listen. That's exactly what that person is, Richard. Her voice was cold now. Someone who makes assumptions. Someone who doesn't listen. Someone who sees a person's skin color before they see the person. He had no response to that, because she was right. He'd spent 20 years thinking of himself as a good doctor, a fair person, someone who treated everyone equally. But this afternoon he'd shown his true colors. He'd shown that despite all his education and professional success, he was still capable of the same prejudice he'd always insisted he didn't have. And now that prejudice had come back to haunt him in the cruelest possible way. The surgery took 3 hours. 3 hours of sitting in that waiting room watching the clock, imagining everything that could go wrong. 3 hours of his wife's silence, which was worse than any accusation. 3 hours of knowing that his daughter's life depended on the compassion and skill of a man he'd shown neither compassion nor respect. When Dr. Williams finally emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, his face was tired but calm. The procedure was successful. Katie's stable. The next 24 hours will be critical, but I believe she's going to make a full recovery. His wife collapsed in relief, sobbing. Dr. Cromwell felt his knees weaken. Thank you, he managed to say. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams nodded. She'll be in recovery for a few hours, then back in the ICU. You can see her then. I'll be monitoring her throughout the night. You're staying? Dr. Cromwell asked. I always stay with my critical patients through the first night. I want to make sure there are no complications. He started to walk away, but Dr. Cromwell called after him. Dr. Williams, why? After how I treated you, why would you do this? Why would you help her? Dr. Williams turned back, and for the first time there was real emotion in his expression. Not anger, but something sadder. Something that looked like disappointment. Because unlike you, Dr. Cromwell, I actually remember why I became a doctor. I took an oath to help people. All people, not just the ones I like. Not just the ones who look like me or talk like me or treat me with respect, everyone. He paused, then added quietly, I just wish you'd remembered that oath this afternoon when I needed your help. And with those words hanging in the air, he walked away, leaving Dr. Cromwell standing there, finally understanding the true weight of what he'd done. Dawn broke slowly over the hospital. Dr. Cromwell hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in that uncomfortable waiting room chair, watching nurses come and go, listening to the sounds of a hospital at night. His wife had dozed off around 4, her head resting against his shoulder, though he knew she'd wake up angry at him all over again. Every hour, Dr. Williams had come out to update them. Katie's vitals were improving. Her oxygen levels were stabilizing. Her heart rhythm was returning to normal. Each time, the surgeon delivered the news with professional efficiency, then returned to his patient without waiting for thanks or conversation. Around 6 in the morning, they were finally allowed to see her. Katie looked small in that hospital bed surrounded by machines and monitors, but her eyes were open, and when she saw them, she managed a weak smile. "Hey, Dad," she whispered. "Did we win the game?" His wife laughed through her tears, squeezing their daughter's hand. "Oh, sweetheart, don't worry about the game. There's a doctor," Katie said softly. "He's been checking on me all night. He's really nice. He told me about when he played soccer in college." Dr. Cromwell felt something twist in his chest. Of course he had. Of course Dr. Williams had taken the time to connect with his patient, to see her as a person, to make her feel less scared. That's what good doctors did. That's what he used to do before he'd let cynicism and prejudice cloud his judgment. Dr. Williams appeared in the doorway, making his morning rounds. "Good morning, Katie. How are you feeling?" "Tired. Everything hurts, and that's normal. You've been through a lot. But your numbers look great. I think we're past the worst of it." He checked her monitors, made some notes on his tablet, adjusted her IV drip. Every movement was careful, competent, caring. "Will I be able to play soccer again?" Katie asked. "Eventually, yes. But not for a while. Your body needs time to heal. We'll take it slow, okay?" She nodded, already drifting back to sleep. Dr. Williams turned to leave, but Dr. Cromwell followed him into the hallway. "Dr. Williams, can we talk, please?" The surgeon looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "There's a consultation room down the hall. 5 minutes. That's all I can spare." They sat across from each other in a small room with a table and 4 chairs. Medical posters covered the walls. An anatomy chart. "A diagram of the human heart I need to explain," Dr. Cromwell began. "Yesterday when you came to my office, you assumed I was lying about my job," Dr. Williams said flatly. "You dismissed my symptoms without examination. You implied I was only hired because of diversity initiatives. You treated me like I was too stupid to understand my own body. Does that about cover it?" Dr. Cromwell flinched. Hearing it said out loud was worse than remembering it. "I was wrong. Completely wrong. I made assumptions based on nothing. On prejudice I didn't even know I had." "Oh, you knew," Dr. Williams said quietly. "Maybe you didn't want to admit it to yourself, but you knew. We always know when we're treating someone as less than human." "I'm not a racist," Dr. Cromwell said, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Do you know what the really sad part is?" Dr. Williams leaned back in his chair. "I actually needed your help yesterday. Those chest pains, they're real. I've been ignoring them for months because I've been too busy, too focused on my patients. I finally made myself book an appointment. I came to you hoping for guidance, for proper care, and instead you spent 10 minutes making me feel like I didn't deserve to be in that exam room. I should have listened. I should have ordered tests. Yes, you should have, because that's your job. Your job isn't to decide who deserves care based on how they look or where you think they belong. Your job is to help people who are sick. Period." Silence filled the room. Dr. Cromwell wanted to defend himself, to explain that he was tired that day, that he'd had a bad morning, that he wasn't usually like that, but all those excuses died in his throat because he knew they didn't matter. "How long?" he finally asked. "How long what? How long have you dealt with this?" "With doctors like me?" Dr. Williams smiled, but there was no humor in it. "My whole life. Do you want to know why I became a cardiothoracic surgeon? Because when I was 12, my grandfather had a heart attack. We took him to 3 different hospitals. 3. At each one, the doctors took one look at him and assumed he was drug-seeking or exaggerating his symptoms. By the time someone finally took him seriously, it was too late. He died in the 4th emergency room while a doctor lectured him about wasting hospital resources. Dr. Cromwell felt sick. I became a doctor so that no one else would have to watch their grandfather die because someone made assumptions. I became a surgeon because I wanted to be the kind of doctor I needed when I was 12 years old. The kind who sees patients, not skin color. The kind who listens, not judges. I'm sorry about your grandfather. I don't need your sympathy. I need doctors like you to do better. To be better. Because you know what happened last night? While I was saving your daughter's life, I was also having chest pains, real ones. The kind that made me worry I might not make it through the surgery, but I couldn't stop. Your daughter needed me, and unlike you, I don't get to pick and choose who I help based on who I think deserves it. Dr. Cromwell's blood ran cold. You were having chest pains during the surgery? Still am, actually. Dr. Williams stood up. I'm going to make an appointment with a cardiologist today. A different one. Someone who will actually listen to me. And I'm going to take care of myself, because I have patients who need me to be healthy. Let me examine you. Please, let me make this right. No. The word was firm but not angry. I don't trust you, Dr. Cromwell, and you know what? I shouldn't have to trust you. I should be able to walk into any doctor's office and receive competent, compassionate care. But that's not the world we live in, is it? He moved toward the door, then stopped. Your daughter told me something last night while we were waiting for the surgical team to prep. She said you're her hero. She said she wants to be a doctor just like you when she grows up. She thinks you're the smartest, kindest person in the world. Dr. Cromwell felt tears burning behind his eyes. That's a lot of faith to live up to, Dr. Williams continued. I hope you'll take it seriously. I hope you'll become the doctor she thinks you are. Because right now, you're not that person. Right now, you're just another doctor who let prejudice get in the way of patient care. And there are already too many of those in the world. What can I do? Dr. Cromwell asked. How do I fix this? You can't fix it. Not really. You can't take back yesterday. You can't undo the dismissiveness or the assumptions or the way you made me feel. But you can choose to do better tomorrow. You can choose to examine your biases. You can choose to listen to your patients, all of them, with the same respect and attention you'd want for your own daughter. Will you accept my apology? Dr. Williams considered this for a moment. I accept that you're sorry. I accept that watching your daughter almost die has given you perspective you didn't have before. But I also know that this conversation is happening because your daughter's life was at stake. If that hadn't happened, if I'd just been another patient you dismissed, would you even remember me today? Would you have thought twice about how you treated me? The honest answer was no. And they both knew it. I'm going to check on Katie one more time before my shift ends, Dr. Williams said. Then I'm going home to get some rest. I'll be back this evening to monitor her progress. In the meantime, Dr. Patterson and his team will take excellent care of her. Thank you for everything, for saving her life despite everything. I didn't do it despite anything. I did it because it's my job, because it's my calling. I just wish more doctors felt that way. He opened the door, then looked back one last time. Oh, and Dr. Cromwell, when your daughter asks you about me later, and she will, tell her the truth. Tell her about yesterday. Tell her what you did and why it was wrong, because if she's going to be a doctor, she needs to understand that the greatest skill in medicine isn't surgical precision or diagnostic brilliance. It's the ability to see every patient as a human being who deserves your very best care, even when they don't look like you. Even when they challenge your assumptions, especially then. And with that, he was gone. Dr. Cromwell sat alone in that consultation room for a long time, staring at the anatomy chart on the wall, at the diagram of the human heart. All those chambers and valves and vessels, all working together to keep a person alive. A heart didn't care about the color of the skin it pumped blood to. It just did its job. Why couldn't he do the same? His phone buzzed. A reminder about his appointments for the day. 7 patients scheduled starting at 9 o'clock. 7 people who would come to him for help. 7 people who would trust him with their health, their fears, their pain. 7 chances to be better than he was yesterday. He just hoped it wasn't too late to learn. 3 weeks had passed since that night in the ICU. Katie was home now, recovering well, though she wouldn't be cleared for soccer until next season. She spent most days on the couch catching up on schoolwork and complaining about being bored. Normal teenager stuff. The sound of her laughter from the other room was the sweetest thing Dr. Cromwell had ever heard. But everything else had changed. Dr. Cromwell stood in his office, looking at the framed certificates on his wall. Medical school, residency, board certifications. 20 years of practice. All of it suddenly felt hollow. He'd spent the past 3 weeks thinking about that conversation with Dr. Williams, thinking about the chest pains he'd dismissed, thinking about a 12-year-old boy watching his grandfather die because doctors made assumptions, thinking about how many patients he'd rushed through, how many concerns he'd brushed off, how many times he'd let unconscious bias cloud his judgment. His wife had been cold to him since that night, not angry anymore, just distant. She looked at him differently now, like she was seeing someone she didn't fully recognize. Maybe she was. Katie didn't know the full story yet. But Dr. Cromwell knew he needed to tell her. Dr. Williams had been right about that. If his daughter was going to become a doctor, she needed to understand the weight of that responsibility. His morning appointment was about to begin. He'd already looked at the chart. A new patient, transferring care from another practice. No specific complaints, just a general checkup. The knock on the door came right on time. "Come in," he called. A young woman entered, maybe 25, wearing scrubs, a hospital employee, probably a nurse or technician. She smiled nervously. "Hi, Dr. Cromwell, I'm your 9 o'clock. He stood and shook her hand, gesturing to the examination table. "Please have a seat. What brings you in today?" For the next 45 minutes he listened. Really listened. She talked about headaches she'd been having, stress from work, trouble sleeping. He asked questions. He took notes. He didn't interrupt. He didn't make assumptions. When she mentioned she worked night shifts at the hospital, he asked which department. When she said she'd recently been promoted to lead surgical tech, he congratulated her. When she seemed hesitant to mention that her grandmother had died from a brain aneurysm, he gently encouraged her to share her full family history. "I'd like to order some tests," he said finally. "Given your symptoms and family history, I think we should do an MRI to rule out anything serious. The headaches are probably stress-related, but let's be thorough." Her relief was visible. "Thank you. My last doctor said I was just anxious. He told me to try meditation." Dr. Cromwell felt a familiar twist of shame. Meditation is great for stress management, but it's not a substitute for proper medical investigation. "Let's get you those tests scheduled." After she left, he sat at his desk for a moment, thinking about how easy that had been, how little extra time it had actually taken to treat someone with dignity and thoroughness. 45 minutes instead of 10. One patient who left feeling heard instead of dismissed. Why had he ever thought rushing was acceptable? His next patient was an older man with diabetes, then a teenager with persistent cough, then a middle-aged woman worried about her blood pressure. Each appointment ran longer than his old schedule allowed. His receptionist had to apologize to people who were kept waiting. But no one complained, because when they got into that exam room, they received his full attention. At lunch, Dr. Cromwell didn't eat in his office like usual. Instead, he drove across town to a community health clinic he'd never visited before. It was in a neighborhood he'd rarely had reason to drive through. The building was old but clean, the waiting room crowded with people. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked. "I'm Dr. Cromwell. I was hoping to speak with whoever's in charge. I'd like to volunteer." The director, a tired-looking woman named Dr. Chen, seemed surprised but pleased. "We're always looking for volunteers. Can I ask what brought you here?" "I need to be a better doctor," he said simply. "And I think working here might help me remember why I became one in the first place." She studied him for a moment, then smiled. "We have a volunteer orientation next Tuesday evening, 6 o'clock. Don't be late." That evening, Katie was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework when he got home. She looked up as he entered, her face brightening. "Hey, Dad. Mom said you're coming to my follow-up appointment with Dr. Williams tomorrow." "I am. How are you feeling?" "Good, tired but good. Dr. Williams said that's normal." She paused. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Dr. Williams is really amazing, right? I mean, he saved my life. But when you first saw him that night at the hospital, you looked weird, like you'd seen a ghost or something. Do you guys know each other?" This was it. The moment Dr. Williams had said would come. Dr. Cromwell pulled out a chair and sat down across from his daughter. "Yes, we know each other. He was my patient the day before your emergency." "Really? That's such a coincidence. Katie, I need to tell you something, and it's not going to make you proud of me, but you need to hear it." Her smile faded. "What do you mean?" So he told her. Everything. About how Dr. Williams had come in with chest pains. About how he dismissed those symptoms without proper examination. About the assumptions he'd made, the disrespect he'd shown, about how the man whose skill and compassion had saved her life had been treated as less than human just hours before. Katie's face went through several emotions as he spoke: confusion, disbelief, disappointment. Finally, tears. "Dad, how could you do that?" "I don't have a good answer. I made assumptions based on prejudice I didn't want to admit I had. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. But you're not like that. You always taught me to treat everyone with respect. I taught you what I believed, not what I always practiced. And that's on me. That's something I have to fix." She wiped her eyes. "Does Dr. Williams hate you?" "I don't think he hates me. I think he's disappointed in me. Which is worse, actually. What are you going to do?" "I'm trying to be better. I'm changing how I practice medicine. I'm volunteering at a community clinic. I'm examining my own biases and doing the work to overcome them. But Katie, here's the most important thing I want you to understand." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You told me you want to be a doctor. If you do that, when you do that, you're going to take an oath. You're going to promise to help people, all people, without judgment. And that's not just words. That's a sacred responsibility. Every patient who walks through your door deserves your absolute best care. Not because they've earned it. Not because they look like you or talk like you, or come from the same background, but because they're human beings who are suffering and need help. Like Dr. Williams does," she said softly. "Exactly like Dr. Williams does. He's the kind of doctor you should aspire to be. Not me, not yet anyway. Maybe someday I'll get there." The next day's appointment was awkward. Dr. Williams was professional, examining Katie thoroughly, reviewing her recovery progress, answering all their questions. But there was a distance there, a formality that hadn't existed before. As Katie was getting her shoes back on, Dr. Cromwell stayed behind. "Dr. Williams, I wanted you to know. I told Katie everything. About how I treated you. About what I did wrong." Dr. Williams nodded slowly. "How did she take it?" "She was disappointed in me, as she should be, and I'm trying to change. I've started volunteering at a community health clinic. I'm taking implicit bias training. I'm changing how I practice." He paused. "I know it doesn't undo anything. I know I can't take back that day. But I wanted you to know that I heard you, and I'm trying." For the first time, something in Dr. Williams's expression softened slightly. "That's good. That's a start." He was quiet for a moment. "You know, I did go see a cardiologist. Had a full workup done. Turns out I have some minor blockage. Nothing critical yet, but enough that I need to be on medication and make some lifestyle changes. If I'd waited much longer, it could have been serious." Dr. Cromwell felt his stomach drop. "I could have, but you didn't, and I'm dealing with it now. The point is, we both learned something from this. You learned that every patient deserves thorough care, and I learned that I need to take my own health seriously, not just everyone else's. I'm glad you're okay. Me too." Dr. Williams extended his hand. "Keep doing the work, Dr. Cromwell. Keep examining yourself. Keep treating your patients with the dignity they deserve. That's all any of us can do." They shook hands, and in that gesture there was understanding, if not quite forgiveness. Understanding that people could change. That mistakes could be learned from. That doing better started with acknowledging when you'd done wrong. As Dr. Cromwell left with Katie, she slipped her hand into his. "I'm still going to be a doctor," she said. "I know you are. But I'm going to be like Dr. Williams. Not like you were, like you're trying to be. That's exactly what you should do." 6 months later, Dr. Cromwell was at the community health clinic 3 evenings a week. He'd restructured his private practice to see fewer patients but spend more time with each one. He'd started a mentorship program for medical students interested in addressing healthcare disparities. He would never be friends with Dr. Williams. That bridge had been burned, and some things couldn't be rebuilt. But occasionally they'd see each other at medical conferences or hospital events. They'd nod respectfully. They'd exchange brief words about Katie's recovery, about the clinic, about the work they were both doing, and once, at a cardiology symposium, Dr. Williams approached him during the reception. "I heard about your mentorship program. That's good work you're doing. Thank you. It's not enough, but it's something. It's more than something. Every doctor you train to be better, to think beyond their assumptions, that ripples out. That changes lives." Dr. Cromwell nodded, feeling the weight of those words. "My daughter's applying to medical schools next year," he said. She'll make an excellent doctor." "I hope so. I hope she's better than I was." "She will be," Dr. Williams said with certainty, "because she's learned from both your mistakes and your efforts to correct them." That's a powerful education. They parted ways that night knowing that some wounds healed differently than others, that regret could drive change, that being humbled could lead to growth. Dr. Cromwell would spend the rest of his career trying to be worthy of the second chance he'd been given. Not by Dr. Williams, but by every patient who walked through his door after that night. Every person who deserved to be seen, heard, and treated with the compassion that all human beings were owed. That was his new oath, and this time he meant to keep it.